And it's Ken Kraetzer for CaMMVetsMedia, our weekly Army football huddle. Tonight we'll digest the game at Yankee Stadium. Notre Dame a 49-14 winner over Army. Army's first loss of the season, but they have no rest, and they will play a very good team, University of Texas San Antonio, at Michie Stadium on Saturday. And if they win that game, they'll be back there the following Saturday to play Tulane. If they don't win, they will be likely traveling the following week. So we'll go through the anticipation on all that. Army's got a lot of football to play. First, let me welcome Richard Miller from Florida.
Hi, Ken. Great to be here.
Good to see you. And we got Chuck Donegan, who was with me at Yankee Stadium on Saturday, was out on the field most of the game. Chuck, how are you?
Good, Ken. A lot better than performance we saw from Army on Saturday, I'll tell you that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And we've got Colonel Sam Houston in the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama. Colonel, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Ken. And I looked up. The sky is not falling, and for all the people who went into immediate panic mode, just relax, all right, and we'll talk about it tonight.
Well, I do know the Army football team was back at practice on Sunday, and we talked a little bit with two seniors, Trey Miller and Trey Sophia, both defensive linemen, and they are laser focused now on UTSA. And so let's go around. Colonel, what was your thought? You watched the game from Huntsville with a number of West Point alumni. What was your thought on the game?
Yeah, before I do that, I just got to make a minor correction on you, Ken.
What is that?
Army is not automatically hosting at Michie if they win on Saturday, and let me explain.
Go ahead.
Tulane and Army have identical records in the American Athletic Conference. Tulane plays Memphis on Thursday night. They're a 14.5-point favorite. Tulane jumped Army in both the AP and coaches poll. I don't believe the college football playoff poll has come out, but it is very likely that Tulane jumped Army in the college football playoff poll when it comes out today, tonight, or whenever they do it. And as a result, Tulane is in the driver's seat right now as far as hosting the AAC championship game. And if they win against Memphis, I would be willing to bet that no matter what Army's performance is on Saturday, the game will be at Tulane.
Well, okay, that's a good clarification. And now it is interesting in this era of you play an 8-game schedule, and you don't play everybody. Army didn't play Tulane in the regular season to create a decisive factor in this.
Nope. And no matter. Army Athletic Association blasted out an email to all the donors and season ticket holders today. I went in and I reserved a ticket for either location. So I plan to come to the American Athletic Conference Championship game. I'm hoping and praying it's going to be at West Point. I would love to see Tulane have to play in winter weather. But if not, I will make the drive down to the Crescent City and watch the game at Ullman Stadium there in Tulane.
Yeah, how big is that stadium? Have you been there before?
Yeah, I was there for the 2017 game.
Yeah. Didn't they upgrade it after the hurricane? Or they had some damage?
It was pretty. Which hurricane are you talking about?
They've had a few down in New Orleans, sadly.
I know. I mean, that's why I mean, which hurricane are you talking about? I don't know if they've done any renovations since 2017. In 2017, the stadium was it seemed pretty fresh, like they had done some fresh paint and not expansion, but the facilities seemed pretty good. And, Tulane's there in the Garden District of New Orleans, so it's a pretty location. But
did you ever get to the big Tulane Stadium that hosted the Super Bowl a few times?
Amazingly enough, Ken, the year after, let's see, 1997. And I know we haven't gotten into the Notre Dame game yet, but in 1997, I had a friend who worked for Tulane on the Tulane athletic department, and Army played Tulane in the Superdome. Tulane was undefeated that year, and I believe they finished the season undefeated, as a matter of fact, and in the top 10. And they hosted Army at Tulane, and it was in the Superdome. And I had a sideline pass. I literally was standing with the Army football team the whole time. And the crazy thing is that I was ready to run out with the rabble rousers and the soup and everybody else whenever they scored and do push-ups. Yeah, Army got shut out that day, so I never did a push-up.
Oh, man. I didn't
I
get the
remember, I
chance.
think it was in 2009 or 2010, Army played Tulane in the Superdome and won.
Yeah, well, I was a far cry from 1997, so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what was your thought on the game? Army just couldn't stay with Notre Dame, and the blocked punt and hurt, and they made a good defensive stand in the third quarter. Excuse me, in the second quarter, and kept them in the game 14-7. But then Notre Dame scored a couple of times and led 28-7 at the half. And then when you thought maybe they had a chance in the third quarter, Notre Dame went for the jugular with I believe it was a 68-yard run from scrimmage that scored a touchdown on the first play of the second half, and that pretty much iced the game. Well, how did you see it, Sam?
So last week I outlined what each side of the ball needed to do in order to have a chance in this game, and Army did not accomplish anything that I outlined other than one. They won the time of possession, but that's not good enough. You can't just win one of what I outlined, and I'm sure that Army's game plan included everything that I had outlined and more. So starting from the generic perspective and the overarching perspective, and that is Army needed to play a perfect game on both sides of the ball and on special teams in order to have a chance in this game, and they didn't. And they didn't from the start. They started with a 3-and-out. They had to punt. Notre Dame was able to establish the run, which the defense, the Nate Woody defense is stop the run first, and Army never really did stop the run, and it went from hemorrhaging to outright bleeding in the second half. And then on special teams, after Army's second 3-and-out, Wagonseller bobbled the snap, and that microsecond delay gave the Tulane rush the opportunity to get a glove on the ball and blocked the punt and gave Notre Dame the opportunity to go up 14-0. So before most people had even been able to get into Yankee Stadium, still griping out in the security line, Notre Dame was already up 14-0. So the flip side of this is as follows. Notre Dame came prepared. They were ready to play. They had an outstanding game plan on both sides of the ball. They were extremely well coached. They were genuinely disciplined, especially on defense. And I mentioned last week that their defensive strategy was going to be to crowd the box and depend on their defensive speed in the secondary to be able to close on the perimeter plays. In other words, they wouldn't look like in their set that they were covering the perimeter for the pitch play or anything, but they knew that they had the defensive edge in speed. And we saw this repeatedly. Every single time Army played perimeter ball, pitch to the outside, plays that we look like at the moment of the pitch are going to go for 20 yards, the team speed of Notre Dame was unbelievable. And Army's perimeter blocking was simply unable to have that extra half step to get even a chip block on these guys. And so plays that you would expect on the perimeter to go for 20, 25, 30 yards on just about any other team, they were going for maybe 3 or 4 yards. And it became very frustrating. And eventually what became of the offense was less than one-dimensional. And we can't have that. I absolutely cannot have that. We cannot have Bryson Daly carrying the ball 36, 39 times every game and accounting for 85% of the yardage on top of 85% of the hits for the ball carriers. It's just Army's offense is simply not going to be able to stay in upcoming games if their offense has devolved into a less than one-dimensional approach to offense. They can't do it. UTSA, and I don't want to get ahead of myself too much, I'm just going to say that if the offensive game plan is going to be Daly right, Daly left, Daly up the middle against UTSA, it's going to be a long day at Mikey Stadium on Senior Day. It's just the way it is. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. And on defense, the defense was simply overwhelmed. Notre Dame's offensive talent is pretty awesome. And their ball carriers were 2 and 3 yards downfield every time they touched the ball before they'd even been touched by a defender. And the biggest concern that, first off, the disappointment is not that Army lost the game. I know it's crazy to say that. I know that we all were really thinking that if ever there was a year in the modern era where Army football was going to teach Notre Dame a lesson, this was it. This might have been true if Jerry Faust was coaching Notre Dame, but he's not. And Notre Dame has got a pretty legit team. They stumbled their toe on Northern Illinois, but I got to say they have absolutely blown everybody else out, and they're pretty legit. I'm not trying to tell you how far they're going to go in a college football playoff, but right now they're legit, and I wouldn't want to have to play them. So the fact that Army lost should not be a reason to think that the sky's falling or that, oh my God, Army's been exposed. I've heard a few people already say that Army's, okay, their strength of schedule just got exposed. I've heard people say they're not as good as we thought they were. The defensive stats were propped up by lesser competition and all these other things that I have heard. I'm going to say this is all bunk. No, Army's having an outstanding year, and they still are. They lost to Notre Dame. They lost pretty badly to Notre Dame. They still had a lot of fight in them. The biggest concern I've got about the game itself is the fact that there were some key players that got hurt in the game. And that's what Army cannot have happen at this point of the season, where the most important games of the entire schedule are still coming up. And, we found out before the game even started that one of the team captains was out, and that not only is he out, we found out after the game that he's out with a knee injury for the season. And, he's been a beast on defensive end. And Lewis, he's been a beast on defensive end. He's one of the leading sack guys on the defense. He's an excellent run stuffer. And he's out for the season. And then we saw Cody Harris Miller go down. And I don't know what his status is. I haven't
said anything. And there seems to be a little bit of concern there.
This is a real concern. And why is that? Because this is our 300-pound nose tackle run stuffer. And when you have a defense where the number one objective in every single game is stop the run first, you need your run stuffer up front absorbing blockers so that the linebackers are running free in space to be able to hit the ball carrier at the line of scrimmage. And so we're really concerned about that. We also saw Max DiDomenico go out in a really scary moment. I've heard now that what it is a knee bruise. What does that mean going forward for UTSA? I don't know. He did come back and play in the game. He seemed to be okay. But we also saw Casey Larkin get banged up late in the game. And that's a real concern. The two starting safeties for Army are so critical to that defense and that the defensive strategy and their pass coverage and everything else. They're the two leading interception guys on the team. They've got the most pass defense between the both of them. They're experienced leaders in coverage. And when your next three teams that you're going to play all like to pass the ball, UTSA, they like to pass the ball. Tulane, they like to pass the ball. Oh, and guess what? Navy passes the ball a lot more than they used to. So this is a real concern. And, it's either we hope these guys heal up, and we do, and we pray they're going to be okay and they get back on the field soon, or next man up. These guys have got to be ready to step in and perform immediately. There's no warm-up time. You're going to be thrust into the heat of battle right away, and you got to deliver right away to your teammates. All right. So, but the Notre Dame game, I'm just glad to have it behind us. And I know there was a lot of hype behind it, and there should be. It's a historical thing. If anything, it highlighted the difference in the modern era, especially in the age of the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness, when Notre Dame was playing so many people who just a year ago were playing for other colleges, and they all came to Notre Dame. And hey, they're trying to poise themselves to make a run deep in college football playoff. And the reason they had no qualms about putting a stomp on Army is because Army was ranked coming in, and Notre Dame wanted to help the way they are viewed by the college football playoff ranking. And I believe that Notre Dame presently among the top 10 teams has beaten more ranked teams than any other team in the college football playoff ranking right now.
They certainly didn't want to have Army play competitively against them, have it be a close game. It would have made them look bad.
No,
and hurt their
not
chances.
at all.
And, to your point, Sam, Coach Munkin in his media conference today called Notre Dame a professional team and said you'd want to compare Notre Dame to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, they're going to have a few draft picks on that team for sure.
But it's also that their players are getting significant name, image, and likeness money.
They are.
It's very hard. We're seeing that the mid-majors are increasingly struggling against the Power Four conference schools, and it goes over to basketball as well as football. Okay, Chuck, you were on the field. What was your impression?
I certainly was, Ken. Yeah, it was, definitely a shocking loss. I mean, we've seen how great Army's been all season. I think they just, did their best, but Notre Dame just, came out, really blitzed them, to say nothing of the injury that DiDomenico suffered early on. I was on the field for that, just got blitzed from behind. Next thing I know, two medics are rushing on the field. They're carrying, after examining him a bit, they carry him off. So naturally stepped aside, made sure. I'm glad he got back later in the game, but I think that was a factor there as well. As Sam pointed out a few moments ago.
How did the speed of play, were you getting a chance to be on the sideline? What was it like to see what the speed of play is in a college football game at that level?
Ken, it was truly a different experience, I would say. I mean, you're seeing it firsthand. You're watching them move, and you're, trying your hardest to get out of the way on should a ball go into the out of bounds territory there.
Yeah, I warned you on that. You got to be alert on the sideline.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So,
okay. Well, good. Yeah,
thankfully,
you got a lot of good coverage for us.
Thank you.
Richard, what was your impression watching from Florida?
My impression really watching from the game, Army just, I think, could not really slow down, the play of Riley Leonard, who had 2 touchdowns in the game, and Jermaine Love, who also ran for 2 touchdowns. Notre Dame with, I think, also a nice balance of also running as well as passing. Jaden Price with 53 yards and 2 touchdowns. Army just could not stop the Notre Dame offense. They put a pedal to the metal, and they really exposed Army for them being a good team. But Army, but not on this day. They exposed Army for the first time all season. Still a good team in Army, but Notre Dame really is making, I think, a case for a spot in the college football, one of the college football playoff spots.
And hosting a first round game.
Yeah.
Notre Dame 462 yards versus Army 233. Despite Army having 20 more plays. Army ran 67 plays, Notre Dame 47, but Notre Dame was scoring quickly on several of its possessions. Okay, and we've got Jack McGuirk. Jack, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good, good. What was your impression of watching the game?
It was rough. It was tough to watch that, but the Army offensive line, they seem to have a hard time stopping the Notre Dame defense. Excuse me. Although Bryson Daly, decent, a pretty good game at 139 yards rushing, 39 carries. One stat that jumps out is time of possession. Army dominated that 39 minutes to Notre Dame's 20. And that was a lot of Army slow, doing ground and pound offense, slowly moving the ball down the field and controlling it. But ultimately, Notre Dame just kept scoring and scoring and scoring. So that was a tough one, but hopefully Army will rebound against UTSA.
Okay. It was a challenging loss, but the Black Knights have to quickly, and they already have. We talked to a couple players and the offense coordinator, and they are fast at work on preparing for Saturday. And UTSA is won their last 3 games, and they are scoring a lot of points. They have averaged 457 yards a game total offense, 293 yards passing, and they give up a lot of yards, 281, and rushing they are doing 164, give up 100. So going to be an interesting game on Saturday. I hope we get a good crowd out there. I mean, the Corps Cadets is away, so you'll have some that live locally. They'll come over to the game. But so you're going to have that north end zone is going to be available for public seating, and hopefully more people come out and see this team. Sam, what are your thoughts about preparing for Texas San Antonio?
First step is just completely purge your minds of what happened this past Saturday to Notre Dame. It's irrelevant. It's behind you. It's water under the bridge. I do believe that this year's Army football team is laser focused. I think they already have done that. I think they're already locked in and eyes on the ball as far as UTSA. They need to recognize the fact that UTSA is not Notre Dame. They do have some very good athletes, though, and especially on the offensive side of the ball. They have a very legitimate running back, and they need to be able to stop the run. They've got, defensively, you got to stop the run first. Force UTSA into passing situations and, continually put them in third and long on offense and get them off the field. And, you're going to hear that the game plan, generically will remain pretty much the same. And that is Army knows they've got to go in. They've got a home game. They've got to go in. It's senior day, so they're going to be fired up. And they need to control the time of possession. They need to mount long offensive sustained drives that finish with touchdowns. Do not turn the ball over. Do not commit stupid penalties that kill drives or keep UTSA's offense on the field. And the defense needs to be able to bend, but not break. And special teams, they need to get back to their perfection. They've just had some, a couple of unusual slip ups, and they definitely had one against Notre Dame. But I think I have heard some people say that, I think, after the pounding that they took against Notre Dame, that maybe some of the starters should rest and let like people like Coleman start and stuff like that. Here, I promise you this: it's Senior Day, and Army understands the significance of winning this game. They want to win the game, and they're going to play to win the game, and they're not going to be resting starters on Senior Day. These guys are going to go out there with the intention of winning. They just need to bring back the intensity and make sure that that intensity was not dampened any by Notre Dame. They need, if the chip on Army's shoulder going into Saturday is as follows. The chip on Army's shoulder is that Notre Dame did not expose the Army team. The Army team is legit on both sides of the ball. And if you think that Notre Dame exposed us, you're about to find out. And it's going to happen on the field. And UTSA is going to be the one who was the victim of finding out that, yeah, we're still just as legit as we were before we played Notre Dame. So, again, it's going to be interesting to see, though, who comes back from which players either that we knew about or maybe players that we didn't know about that sustained injuries against Notre Dame are able to suit up and play at 100% capacity this coming Saturday. Or are we going to find out about somebody kind of like we found out about Kyle Lewis? Nobody knew that he wasn't even going to play. And then all of a sudden he's running the flag on the field and we find out that he's out for the season. So, these are important things. But UTSA is very good. An important stat to remember about UTSA is that they're undefeated at home. They haven't won a single game on the road. So I checked the weather, and it looks like it's going to be about a high of maybe 38.
Yeah, it's going to be a cold day.
Low in the 20s, but it's going to be bright and sunny. I really wish instead it was going to be like snow flurries or snowing or something like that to put a damper on the team speed that they have, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But once that first kickoff goes, it's game on. And I think you're going to see the Army team that we're used to come Saturday.
And I think so too. We have been at a game where it snowed a lot. I know it was in 2011, the end of October. All of a sudden there was a freak 10-inch snowstorm that right before game time made it very difficult to get up there. And it was even worse to try and drive home that night. But Army beat Fordham on a very cold, snowy day, and eliminated Fordham's chance. They had a team that wanted to throw the ball a lot, and Army, I think they shut them out that day by a big margin.
55 to nothing.
55 to nothing was okay.
October 29th.
Yeah, I was there. John Sharan and I covered that one. Okay, Richard, tell us about some of the other scores. 5 big scores in college football last week.
5 big scores in college football from last week. As we go to the college football scoreboard, number 2 Ohio State 38-15 over number 5 Indiana. Let's see. You also have SMU number 13, a lucky 13, 33-7 over Virginia. SMU improves to 10-1 on the season. The number 10 Georgia Bulldogs put down the hammer on UMass 59-21. Georgia is now 9-2. Number 8 Miami over Wake Forest 42-14. And the other game would be number 11 Tennessee 9-2 now, defeating UTEP 56-0. UTEP is 2-9 on the season.
Okay.
Tennessee's quarterback had 4 touchdown passes in that game.
Very good, Richard. Thank you. And Chuck, do you have scores from the other American Athletic Conference games last week?
I certainly do, Ken. Before I get to that, elaborating on what Sam said just now, yes, it was a bad night, disappointing for Army fans such as ourselves, but I have faith they can bounce back from this. I mean, they've had a great season, undefeated up to now, and I have faith that they're going to pull it off this time around.
Okay, very good.
All right. Yep, and with that, we had interesting array of scores on Friday night. UTSA took Temple 51-27. While Saturday, the East Carolina-North Texas match ended with a 40-28 final for East Carolina. While Charlotte-Florida Atlantic saw a 39-27 Charlotte victory. UAB had a strong victory over Rice, 40-14, and another strong victory in the South Florida-Tulsa contest, with South Florida pulling it out 63-30.
63-30. Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Tulsa's coach got
Richard, you
fired.
were checking for us. 5 coaches in the American Athletic Conference have been fired so far this year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even for the end of the season.
Tulsa's is the latest victim.
ACC coaches fired. 5 coaches. So Tulsa has fired Kevin Wilson as the ACC. Carousel continues. Let's see if I can get those.
Okay, we can come back. You look it up, and
Okay.
but it's I think it's a little unfair. It just seems like the schools and the alumni are not showing any patience with teams that aren't productive when they're donating money for the NIL funds, and so it's just I think it's going to be tougher for teams that are group of 5 and don't have the revenue to support NILs the way the Power 4 leagues can. Okay, Jack, what happened with Navy?
Was fired by FAU after a 5-game losing streak.
Yeah.
That's one of them.
Jack, tell us about Navy and Air Force.
All right. Well, Navy actually had a bye week this weekend. They are on the road at East Carolina on Friday. Air Force came up with a win. It was a close one, 22-19 win at Nevada on Saturday. Air Force had 318 yards rushing on the ground, 67 carries. 2 Air Force fullbacks had over 100 yards rushing. Owen Allen had 107 yards on 23 carries. Dylan Carson had 105 yards on 14 carries. Quarterback Quentin Hayes rushed for 68 yards on 20 carries. And Falcons had first score of the game, 11-yard touchdown run by fullback Dylan Carson at 14:55 in the second quarter. And after that, Nevada scored 12 unanswered points. And the Falcons finally scored again in the fourth quarter. It was a 14-yard touchdown, a 9-yard touchdown run by Owen Allen. And then after that, Kate Harris got the 2-point conversion. Air Force taking a 15-12 lead there. A little bit later in the fourth quarter, Quentin Hayes had a 1-yard touchdown carry to take a 22-12 lead. Nevada scored another touchdown, pulling within 3 very late in the fourth quarter. And then they went for an onside kick, and Air Force recovered the kick to seal the win. So Air Force is actually they're 4-7 overall. They actually have now won 3 in a row, and this was actually their first road win of the season. But the Falcons have their last regular season game this Saturday at San Diego State.
Not a bad place to go for Thanksgiving weekend game if you're the Air Force Academy. That is interesting because San Diego State's a Big 12 team. And to play them at the end of the season, that's interesting instead of a Mountain West team. But it's very hard to figure out how these conferences are set up.
Yeah,
especially on the West Coast.
One thing I have to say, I was just thinking about it while Jack was talking about Air Force, and that is one thing I kind of regret about this season is that I have not really been able to talk that much smack about Air Force.
I know, you're so disappointed.
Smack has been talking
not
itself.
Quite the same for you.
But I will say, pay attention to Air Force. As difficult as it is to even want to even turn on a TV and watch them play, it is important to note that they have not lost a game since they lost to Army at Michie Stadium. And of the service academies, they are the only team with a winning streak right now. And they seem to have figured out whatever their mojo was, it was missing. They found it, and they're working hard to make sure that Troy Calhoun's position remains safe for another season. Unfortunately for them, they do not have enough games left to become bowl eligible. So next game they play is going to be lights out for the 2024 season for the Zoomies.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Chuck, what are the other American Athletic Conference games coming up this week? Obviously, we've got Texas, San Antonio, and Army. And
Yep, Ken, you got quite a few of them. Thursday night, we've got the Memphis Tulane contest, 7:30 on
we're all going to be
ESPN.
rooting for Memphis.
Yeah, there you go. And Friday, we have 12 noon, Navy takes on East Carolina, also on ESPN. And yeah, it's another DVR day come Saturday with all the games that are going on. Besides UTSA Army, like we've been talking about, we've also got North Texas and Temple scheduled for noon on ESPN Plus. South Florida versus Rice, 2 o'clock, also on ESPN Plus. Then UAB and Charlotte, 3:30 ESPN Plus. Finally, Florida Atlantic and Tulsa take each other on 3:30 ESPN Plus.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure.
A lot happening, but certainly it would be wonderful if Memphis upset Tulane. What was that, Thursday night? That's the Thanksgiving night game.
Thanksgiving night. And amazing to me about that game is that right now, at least the last spread that I saw, Tulane is a 14.5-point favorite over Memphis, even though they have identical records. So,
I thought Memphis was going to be the best team in the conference this year, too.
Well, that's true. They were predicted to win the conference, and they still have the talent that caused people to predict them to win the conference, and they've still managed to go 8-2 so far this, or 9-2 so far this season. And we'll, grab your turkey and pull for Memphis. Let's see if these guys can figure out, what it is that people saw in them that had them winning the conference and pull the upset on Tulane on Thursday night. That would be really beneficial because we all would prefer for Army to host the AAC championship game. The other game that, pay close attention to is Friday when Navy plays East Carolina at East Carolina, in Greenville, North Carolina. East Carolina has been hot ever since Army beat them. I don't think they have lost since then. And I believe that East Carolina is going to beat Navy on Friday. We'll see. I've been hearing some rumors coming out of the Navy camp from unconfirmed sources. I'm not going to go into it right now, but this is a real reason why I'm going to be watching to see what's going on with Navy come Friday. But again, I really think East Carolina has got the juju going to make sure that they keep their win streak going and roll right into a bowl game. So we'll see. But
that's what they said they wanted to do when they fired their coach right after the Army game.
They did.
They said they wanted to have a chance to be at a bowl game because they need the success.
And well, they haven't lost since. They have not lost a game since.
Well, I guess the athletic director made the right call. Okay, Richard, now there are a few big games this weekend in college football, certainly Michigan, Ohio State, some of the other big traditional rivals this weekend.
I mean, the game of the year definitely will be Michigan and Ohio State Saturday. Also, we will have wait, let me get up to that. Let's see. November 25th. Okay, let's see. We have Michigan and Ohio State. We have also number 7 Georgia taking on Georgia Tech at 7 o'clock. We have Nebraska and Iowa. That's a 7:30 kickoff. We have Tennessee, number 8 Tennessee taking on Vanderbilt. That's a 12 noon start. Also, number 15 South Carolina taking on number 12 Clemson. That's a 12 o'clock start. We also have, let's see what else. We have Miami, number 6 taking on Syracuse. That's a 3:30 game. Auburn and Alabama. The Iron Bowl. That's a 3:30 game. Also, you will have as well NC State taking on North Carolina at 3:30, and in prime time, number 3 Texas taking on Texas A&M. Number 1 Oregon will be taking on Washington.
Very good, Richard. Thank you. Okay, let's go down and do our lightning round on Army hosting University of Texas San Antonio, a 12 noon start at Michie Stadium, and
Ken,
Saturday.
real quick before we do the lightning round.
Go ahead.
This is rivalry weekend for the big conferences, as Richard just outlined. There's something in the air this year in 2024, and college football teams that we just assumed were going to be victorious on their rival days. I can't say the same about that this year. And I'm just going to say, look at the SEC, for example. There are no undefeated teams in the SEC right now. We just saw Alabama lose to Oklahoma for their third loss of the season. Meanwhile, Auburn, who's fighting for bowl eligibility, beat Texas A&M in three or four overtimes.
Great game.
And it was an outstanding game. It was a good way to pick me up after watching Army Notre Dame. Then we have Vanderbilt, who is having a good season for Vanderbilt, and they're hosting Tennessee. And what about Georgia Tech? I mean, Georgia Tech, if memory serves me correctly, Georgia Tech upset Miami, right? So where am I going with this? We may see Saturday roll around with Georgia losing to Georgia Tech, Tennessee losing to Vanderbilt, Alabama losing to Auburn, and Washington is no pushover for Oregon, who almost got beat by Wisconsin this past Saturday. So college football playoff could undergo a massive titanic shift, seismic shift this weekend with the rivalry games. It's going to be interesting. So pay close attention to it.
Sure. And then the announcement of we'll have a college football playoff coming up very soon, after next week. I guess they do the final announcement of the pairings after the conference championship weekend. And we'll see what happens, what the final pairings are, and then who's going to go to the other bowl games. When I was at the Board of Visitors meeting on Friday at West Point, Mike Buddy, the athletic director, said he expected an invitation either from the Independence Bowl in Shreveport or from the Military Bowl in Annapolis. I guess we're all hoping for Shreveport. Actually, I met the president of the bowl. She was up at the Air Force game, and they're really excited to have Army there. They talked about all the military that are in Louisiana. What is it, Polk Army base? What's the name of the base there, the big one in Louisiana, Sam?
I forget what they renamed it to, but it's Polk to me.
Yeah, because I used to read a lot of the National Guard units were going down there to train before they'd go on deployments.
That's the home of the Joint Readiness Training Center.
Yeah, so it's a big Army military presence, which they pointed out.
Ken, it wouldn't be, if I looked up Fort Johnson?
Yeah, I think that might be it.
Okay, yeah, no, they changed some of the names.
I should have just left them all the same.
But, yeah, okay, so we're hoping for Shreveport. Army played there about, what year was it, Sam, in the 90s?
1996, Army versus Auburn in the Independence Bowl. I was in attendance sitting on that hard concrete seat. I watched Army storm back in the fourth quarter. Literally one of the greatest comebacks in the making. Army had the ball third and goal from the 7-yard line with about 30 seconds left to go in the game. Auburn there and down 32-29. Auburn's defensive linemen were not even getting down in the 4-point stance. They were literally just standing at the line of scrimmage with their hands on their hips. And Bob Sutton, the coach, elected to kick the field goal on third down. And the kicker, who had never missed from inside the 20-yard line the entire season, went wide right. And the game ended with Auburn 31, Army 29. I was there.
Oh, gosh. Hate to lose on a missed field goal.
Well, they should have. Everyone in the stands believed that with Auburn completely gassed, and believe me, they were. And Ronnie Makeda at quarterback, they should have made one more play and then kicked a field goal if they didn't make it.
Okay. Okay, let's do our lightning round, and let's start with Jack McGuirk, UTSA at Army. What do you think the score is going to be?
Oh, I like Army in this one. I think they're going to rebound after that tough loss to Notre Dame. I looked it up. Actually, Army is 7-point favorites in this game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like Army. I'm going to say I'll go 28-17.
28-17. Okay. Okay, let's go to Chuck Donegan. Chuck, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm actually not too far off the mark from Jack's prediction. I think it's going to be 35-14.
35-14. Okay. And it's Army 35. Okay, Richard, what's your thought on this game?
My thoughts on this game, 35-14. 35-14. Army is going to rebound and
Yeah,
win
you
this
got to
game.
come up with something different from Chuck. Got to go.
Oh, okay.
Something a little different.
Something a little different. Okay, so I will go Army 27-14. 27-14.
27-14. Okay, and that was Richard and Sam.
I'm going to shape my prediction on an ideal scenario, and let me explain ideal scenario. Ideal scenario is that, number one, the injuries that Army sustained during the Notre Dame game are able to come back and play on defense. These are very important when you're playing a very high-speed offense like UTSA. They're playing on turf. There's no bad weather in the forecast, just cold. And the flip side of that is on the offensive side of the ball, that we do not see Army's offense continuing this less than one-dimensional play calling, which has been baffling. Part of it has been dictated by the defense that the other teams are playing, but we cannot see Bryson Daly carrying the ball another 35 times in this game. We need some even distribution. We need to attack the perimeter. We need to get Kanye Udo the ball in between the tackles. And we've got the team speed on the outside to match up favorably with UTSA's defense, unlike Notre Dame. And I'm going to make a call based on the fact that I believe that our ideal scenario, as I call it, is going to happen. And that Army's defense is going to come back as healthy as they possibly can. And that Army's offense is going to get back its mojo that it was having when it was just steamrolling people like UAB and Tulsa and Temple and all these guys. So that being said, and by the way, the offense is going to have to score points. They're going to have to score touchdown after touchdown after touchdown and keep the ball away from UTSA's explosive offense, because it's right now they're firing on all cylinders, I'm telling you.
Okay.
So that being said, I believe the final score of this game is going to be Army 42, UTSA 28.
Okay, high scoring game. There's a lot of points. Okay, my turn. The key is how Army comes back physically from the playing a very physical Notre Dame team. As we pointed out, a couple of players got hurt in that game. Maxi Domenico got back in, so he should be able to play this week. And then we're not sure about Cody Harris Miller, the big nose tackle. Hopefully he's going to be able to play, but they have a little bit of depth at nose tackle. But it is a lot of injuries with Kyle Lewis out on the defensive line. So stopping the run is going to be a challenge, but the defense is going to have to try and put a pass rush on the UTSA quarterback who likes to throw the ball. And on offense, Army's, as Sam said, has got to stop being one-dimensional and find ways to get the ball to the perimeter to Noah Short and try to get some plays, use his speed, and that also Tyrell Robinson to make some plays. But as you said, it's going to be a ball control game. Hard to say exactly the score, but I think it's going to be close. And Army may need a field goal. May not be a great day for field goal kicking, but I'm going to go for 28-21. I think it's going to be a close game, and Army's going to prevail, and it could get interesting at the end.
Be a nail biter.
Well, it'd be nice to have a nail biter as long as Army wins.
Yeah, got that right.
Sam would just rather see a dominant win that he doesn't have to sweat about
every time.
I hear that. Yeah.
But I always remember that game Army had against Miami of Ohio, where it went down to the last play. Elijah Riley stopped the 2-point conversion, and the stadium was full.
Actually, that was Gibby Gibson who did that, not Elijah Riley.
Well, I think it was a combination. I think Gibson stopped him at the 5, and then Riley came around from the other side of the field.
Gibby hit him and flipped him, and he came up short.
Okay, I have to dig out that tape. I was standing right behind the end zone for that one. I got a great video. I have to see if I can dig that one out. But it was a great moment because they were going to win or lose on that play. The whole stadium's on its feet making noise, and it was a very exciting win.
It was
Army. Probably the best moment I've seen.
I believe it was the Eastern Michigan game that had kind of a similar ending. It just didn't go into overtime.
Yeah. I just remember the Eastern Michigan game where Army just blew them apart, something like 50-7. And who was the running back, Sam, who had the big game? I think he had 5 touchdowns in that one.
In East Carolina?
Against Eastern. I'm thinking Eastern Michigan.
In 2018?
That's way back. This is like 2012, 2013.
Oh yeah, I'd have to go back and see that. But 2018 Army. So 2017 Army played. The Army played Eastern Michigan, and it went down to the last play of the game. And then in 2018, Army traveled to Eastern Michigan and just blew them out, just absolutely destroyed them. I thought you were talking about that game.
Yeah, that was another one. Eastern Michigan's program was suffering for a while, and then they rebuilt. Anyway, let's call it a night. We've got 5 predictions of an Army victory on Saturday at Mikey Stadium. As I mentioned, I understand there are tickets available for the game. So maybe a great day to go out, take some people out to visit West Point if you haven't been there in a while, and enjoy a great day of college football that is second to none at West Point. And just arrive early. We've all learned key on college football these days is get there early. And certainly at West Point, you have a chance to enjoy a great pregame.
And one thing that should make the game easier for access and tailgating and everything else is the fact that the Corps is actually out for Thanksgiving, and as a result, there is no cadet review on the plane or anything like that. So get on out there. Hey, go check it out. It's going to be bright and sunny that day, just a little chilly, and if I swear to God, if I was 4 hours away, I would be there. So,
well, we'll hopefully see you the following week with a game for the American Athletic Conference Championship. And
no doubt.
See where that's going to be played, whether you're traveling north or south to that one. Okay, we'll call it. I just want to do a shout out to all our military members serving over Thanksgiving. All across the world, so we can enjoy our safety and enjoy Thanksgiving here at home. But we know there are many, many military members from the Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Marine Corps out serving. And, one of the things I've learned, Sam, and you probably have experienced this, is that on military bases or ships, the senior officers all serve the Thanksgiving meal to their enlisted soldiers or sailors. Did you participate in one of those?
Oh, many times. So when I was a battalion commander in Iraq in 2011, my command sergeant major and I manned the serving line at the DFAC for Thanksgiving supper. And then the following year, I was in Saudi Arabia and manning the serving line. And then as Bagram Garrison Commander, I was manning the line at one of the many DFACs there at Bagram, serving Thanksgiving meals out to the soldiers. And then the following year, when I was Chief of Staff at the Sustainment Command there at Fort Hood, now Fort Cavazos, I was at the mess hall that our soldiers ate at, and I was manning the carving station for the turkey and the roast beef and serving it up in nice healthy portions to the soldiers. So yeah, it is a tradition that the senior officers, it starts from the fact that, you always know that that officers go through the line last. You wait until all your soldiers have eaten, all of your NCOs have eaten, and then you go through the line. And then when it comes to holidays and you're in dusty lands, that that not only do you go through the line and eat last, but you also practice that servant leadership of rewarding your soldiers with being the one who actually is serving them their meal and letting them know that even though we may be far away from home and family, we are still at home with family, and that is with our comrades, as we're deployed and performing our mission. And so many times I've spent holidays away in dusty lands and surrounded by people who like to shoot at us. But it was always a heartwarming time to know that you were with the people that you needed to be with the most and that you were serving them as leaders.
Well said, Sam, and thank you for your service and being overseas on so many Thanksgiving days so we could enjoy them here at home. So we will enjoy a lot of college football over Thanksgiving and then see where Army's going to play Tulane in the American Athletic Conference Championship, and then a little game against Navy the following week. A lot of football coming up for West Point. It's going to be fun to watch. Okay, well, thank Richard Miller in Florida, Jack McGuirk in Pelham, Chuck Donegan in Long Island, and Colonel Sam Houston in the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama. Thank you all. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you again next week. And Chuck and I will be at Mikey Stadium on Saturday. So thanks, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks.